All right, there we are. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl. I'm here with my good friend Karen and my little grandson. And today we're talking about, let me get the book. We are continuing our discussion about Leonardo and Gabriel by Tim Tigner. And we're on the chapter entitled Actions. And I'm going to let Karen lead the discussion this morning. So Karen, go ahead and jump on out and introduce yourself. Don't forget to do that. And then we can go ahead and get going.
Well, good morning, folks. I'm Karen Lohoff, and I live in the East Valley of the Sun of Arizona. So you see some sun. It's 8 o'clock, a little bit after 8 o'clock in the morning here. And so you're seeing some of the early morning sun. And as the hour goes on, you'll see how quickly the sun rises and gets up higher in the sky. The book that we have, whether you have it in book form or you have it free from Kindle on your Kindle or any of a number of different ways, does not seem to be broken up in what we consider classical chapters. And we are on a part of the book that is entitled Actions. We have gotten through, are we about halfway through? Can you tell? Because I'm on a Kindle, so I don't know how to.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to halfway, maybe even a little bit further than that, because at the end of the book, it has like a couple of chapters that are like just wrap up chapters, conclusion, and then, well, no, I guess maybe, I don't know. It's like there's a conclusion chapter, but then there's another one after that that's titled Jesus, and then another one after that titled Politics. So I'm not sure where it's, I guess, then there's an afterwards. So, it's not the typical chapters for a book. It's just kind of, here's what we're talking about, and he just names the chapter and doesn't give it a number. So,
well, it's not the typical book. It's a book that really is a telling of a dream between Leonardo da Vinci and the Archangel Gabriel. And not only have we discussed with the various people that we've had on the panel here throughout the book, but some of us in talking with, various people in the week in our lives, we find that not very many people really know what an archangel is. And so we're kind of learning about that, or at least Tim Tigner's view of what an archangel is, what Archangel Gabriel is, as we go through the book. But we recognize that Leonardo has been selected specifically for the purpose of being able to become a recipient of the knowledge of who God is, what God is, the entirety of God through a process of using logic. He's been selected because he is the most logic person perhaps who's ever lived, certainly up until that period of time. And as we go through the logic and we try and I don't know that I'm a terribly logical person myself. I've never really thought of myself as a logical person, although I'm confused about many things about myself. So I do think that there are other people who think I'm way too logical. So I suppose that's that's up for grabs. But anyway, I have found it interesting to look at actions, not actions, characteristics and qualities so far that we have looked at regarding God. Gabriel takes Leonardo through the exercise as kind of a student. What would you consider to be the characteristics of God? What would you consider to be the qualities of God? And now we're looking at what would you consider to be the actions of God. As I have followed the book, I've attempted to, most recently, I've attempted to see if I can come up with qualities for myself and characteristics for myself. Obviously, I don't have the same that God has. We've talked about omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence. I have none of those. We've talked about, I'm looking at the sun and practically into the sun, so I'm not going to be able to think of the other things right off the top of my head. But I find that trying to compare myself with the actions that are brought up, that would be actions considered for God, I'm finding myself falling more and more behind, while at the same time intriguingly considering, can I ever anticipate having these for myself? And I'm going to mute for right now. And Samantha, I don't know if I've given you some things to think about or not. Anyway, I feel a little off base this morning, probably because I would enjoy the breakfast that I can smell in the other room.
Right, yeah, I know, the breakfast. That's always going to get you. That's whenever there's good food cooking in the other room and you smell it, you tend to be drawn to it, right? Oh, okay. So on this chapter, the one of actions, of course, Leonardo he's continuing his discussion with Gabriel, and let's see, he says, while scripture and practice vary widely from one religion to the next, there are three defining activities that the major monotheistic religions all assign to God. Each is the topic of many a philosophical treatise. And so then the first one that Leonardo, of course, he latches on to philosophical because he's kind of a philosophical thinker. And but let's see, it says, so in his thought process, he's thinking philosophical, then he's thinking philosopher, and then the first idea that pops into his head is the unmoved mover. And Gabriel says, yes, God started everything. He was the first force in the universe, the impetus of all action. And so they're talking about God as this just the original force in the universe. And I think before we jumped on here, hey, no, leave that alone. Sorry, I'm watching my grandkids too. Leave it alone, Bailey. Get him away from my desk, please. Can you get him? There you go. Bring him over. You don't have to carry him. Just take his hand. There you go. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sometimes kids are like unmoved movers. You can't move them where you want them to go, and then they move like crazy in the direction they want to go. But so anyway, we're talking about the force. Before we got on here this morning, you had mentioned wanted to discuss something more about him being a force. Was that what you were thinking?
I was reminding myself that Gabriel suggests to Leonardo that he not think of God as a being, but rather as a force. When you think about omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, and you think about the other three things I couldn't think about, and I'm not able to kind of regenerate that right now. If you think about a being that way, you tend to kind of containerize your thinking in a way different from if you think about God being a force. And if you and I think that as we think about the actions here in this grouping of chapter, whatever else we might want to call it, it can be helpful to us to not be focused on, okay, this is God, this is Heavenly Father, this is someone that we recognize as a person, but rather as a personage, but rather a force.
Sorry, I got distracted by the kids. They're pushing each other around. So I caught where you were saying about him being a force. And you also said something about a being. Were you suggesting a being that is a force? I'm sorry. They were talking and I missed it.
Bailey, wait. Sure.
You got a lot going on in your background.
I'm dealing with some extra conversation at the moment, and I apologize for that too. I'm not here by myself, and usually I'm not having to deal with the extra conversation. I think perhaps I'm free from that now, but I know that from my background, I think about God in terms of a personage, in terms of a being. I think very specifically in terms of an individual being that I feel like I have a lot of knowledge about personal qualities. I recognize that, like everyone else, I was raised to believe a particular way, whether or not it's true. And so for the purposes of this book and for the purposes of my knowledge about God, I'm working to be open to thinking of God as a force. And it's difficult for me to strip away the personage part that I've had in my mind all this time. So I hope that that's a little bit more clear.
Yeah, okay, now I'm following you. I was just being distracted by the kids, so it's hard to hear everything you said and follow the thought process, But yeah, no, I think that has, I think that happens for a lot of people who have been raised with, religious beliefs, is that they kind of teach that that God is kind of like this being that is similar to a human, and kind of like the old guy with the long beard and the robe and all of that kind of thing. And of course, he's been portrayed that way in many movies, and yet at the same time, in some ways, he's been portrayed in another way where he is more of a. You see the choo choo? Yeah, choo choo. Oh, sorry. Where he's also kind of this someone who's speaking to you from beyond that you can't see, or that is kind of like guiding your actions, or that sort of thing. There's a couple of movies that have been out in the past, I don't know, 10 years or so. One of which was this one where what is that guy's name? Steve Carell, the one that did the Noah one. Steve Carell. Sorry, I'm talking to my husband over here. It was this recently made movie where they kind of do this depiction of him being Noah in modern day times, and And so God is kind of like guiding him to decide to build an ark, and he makes his hair grow all long like the Noah of the Bible, or what we think that the Noah of the Bible looked like. And it's a really funny little show, but it also kind of has this message about God, and that he's kind of like some kind of a force that is kind of helping Noah to kind of move in the direction that God is, wanting him to go. And of course, in that movie, it turns out that the whole reason he's trying to do this is because the town that he's in is down the valley from a big dam that has had a crack in it, or some kind of, the corporations aren't doing what they're supposed to do, so this dam is basically falling apart, and God gets this man to build this ark in just enough time to save everybody. And so it's kind of like the Noah story of the Bible, but yet it's kind of like a modern day version of it. And but anyway, my point in talking about that is that in that they didn't portray God as a human-like being. He was just kind of like this messenger in the background that was kind of just going, here you go, just do this, do that. And little messages would come, and the animals would just show up because they were going to get on the ark, and everything just kind of lined up the way that it was supposed to happen, so that he could end up saving everybody in the town. And then there's other ones like the one that Jim Carrey was in not too long ago. I think it was called Bruce Almighty. And in that one, Bruce ends up with the powers of God. He ends up getting he's like, all of a sudden he's getting all the prayers. He hears everybody in the universe that's praying, and he gets the powers of God where he can just make things happen. And anyway, it was just really kind of a fascinating take on the kind of a non-traditional take on what God might be. But in those, he was portrayed as more of this like force versus an individual. And so I think it's interesting if you can kind of look at things in a different way, other than what we're traditionally taught in religion. I don't know. You have any thoughts? I can go on, Karen. I have another thought, but I'll let you talk for a little bit.
I think that it's really interesting that this is what we're doing. That this, with this book, this is what we're doing. We're talking about different concepts, and it really is interesting when you look at Hollywood and you look at whatever force you would consider behind television series and so on. I remember at my last care home, I had to learn the lesson that things are Hollywood. I mean, I would get all bent out of shape watching something, and I'd say, blah blah blah, and let's see, he turned 80 while I was there. The man that would generally be watching television, if I was watching television, and I would make a remark, which I would think was I would always tend to think was a really bright remark, a really observant remark, and he'd say, you got to remember it's Hollywood. Of course it can happen this way because it's Hollywood, or it's TV or whatever. And I think it's really fascinating how it's kind of a human tendency, at least with the people that I know and with myself, to not want to go there. When I say to not want to go there, I think about not having seen those movies that you talked about. Now, actually, I would enjoy those movies and I would be happy to watch them. But I can also recognize that I have family members and I have friends that wouldn't be interested in those movies simply because they do they do give a different approach to God, and I think a lot of times people just decide that if what they're looking at or considering is different from what they believe, then it's heresy. One of the things that we're probably going to talk about next week is something that that strikes really close to the bone as far as the beliefs that I was raised with, because I think people considered, how we, meaning we of that type of training, viewed things. That was our heresy, or how we would look at things most incorrectly as far as other people were concerned. And I think that as much as we talk about religious freedom in this country, we're really loath to give it to others. We really want others to believe the way that we do, and when they don't, or when we perceive that they don't, we kind of get anxious at one end of the spectrum, and we get butt hurt kind of in the middle, and we get completely road rageous at the other end. And I'm going to give you a second to come up with something else.
Yeah, that's a good point with it. When something's presented to us that may not be what we believe, is we kind of have these little, anxious little somethings come up in the back of our mind, or even sometimes in the forefront. Yeah, the choo-choo just went by, didn't it? Is it coming again?
Yes.
Okay, watch for it. Oh, no, put that back over there. So yeah, I can relate to that, and over the years, it has, when I was younger, it was a lot more difficult for me to be open-minded towards other people's ideas of what God might be, or what, religious beliefs. And I was reading in this other book. This kind of brings up this subject. I don't remember if I outlined it in here or not, but this is let's see. Okay, so this is a book about this one kind of Buddhist. I don't know if she or he is a monk or what, but anyway. So I'm reading this book, and it's just kind of like this person's life experience relating to Buddhist beliefs and that sort of thing. So anyway, she or he, I'm not sure. So I guess it's a Lama Suradas. I don't know if that's a woman or a man, so we'll just say the Lama. So this Lama has gone to Bodh Gaya, and is there, and it's like a place that people go on pilgrimage, and the Lama is saying, I couldn't help but being aware of the amount of faith and devotion that was present in Bodh Gaya. But when we sat up late talking, it also became apparent that everyone had different views on what and whom to believe in. And yet all these people had to believe in something, or else why would they be making such a pilgrimage? There are many faithful in the world. We see them everywhere, yet there is no one for whom faith is automatic and immediate. Faith has to be worked on. But anyway, so the whole point that he's making in here is the Lama says, I meet many people who have belief systems that include guardian angels, astrology, crystals, spirit guides, demons, as well as God, and a large array of traditional household saints. And so I thought that was just really interesting, that is to recognize how many different spiritual beliefs there are in the world, and then further in that chapter, the Lama is also talking about how important having a belief in something is, and that apparently there's been like medical studies done that suggest that people who believe live longer lives and have are happier, less depressed, and that sort of thing. But what's fascinating about it is it doesn't matter what religion or what spiritual belief you have, as long as you have some kind of spiritual belief, which is just kind of, it's like, I don't know, it flies in the face of everything that we've been taught. I mean, if you have gone to the church throughout your life and you've stayed in the same, basic religious sect, is that, you're basically taught this is the way. It's the only way. And if you're not following this way, you're going to hell. At least that's what I've been taught. And yet at the same time, when we look at reality of all the different millions and billions of people on the planet, is that there is no one religion that has a monopoly on religion. I mean, there's so many different ones, and all of them are beneficial in some way. So it's just really, I don't know, it's fascinating, especially on the aspect of thinking of, it's opening our minds to other possible interpretations of what God might be. And I like when we talk about him, or of course, there's another part here in the book that talks about not even identifying God as a him or a her, but to identify more as an it. And that kind of brings us back around to the force aspect of what God could be. And but then I was also thinking, when we talk about him as a force, and in this section where he's suggesting, let's see, God started everything. He was the first force in the universe. And what kind of pops up in my mind is like the scientific aspect of it. Okay, watching the kids, they're running way over there. Okay, as long as I know what they're doing. If you look at the scientific aspect of it, and in science, they talk about like this Big Bang, and like that's the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of the universe. And so if we think of God as a force, then he can fall into that, or not fall into, but he can be then in line with science, if you will. Because something had to initiate that first action in the universe, right? So, if God is the force that initiated that first action and that, caused everything to evolve into what it is now. Uh-oh, I got crying children. Jump out and share your thoughts, Karen. I'll be back in a moment.
Several things came to my mind as you were talking about that, Samantha. And then I'm on this page that you were reading from, and I kind of want to go back to that for just a little bit, because the action that we're talking about here that comes up as one of the qualities, well, it's one of the actions of God, is called, well, I apologize, I'm not all that educated with regards to Aristotle, but Aristotle, this was a reference from Leonardo to Aristotle, that he's talking about the unmoved mover, the unmoved mover leaps to mind. And from that, then what Samantha read, that excellent, yes, God started everything. He was the first force in the universe, the impetus of all action. Now, it does kind of bring to mind the Big Bang Theory, which I don't know all that much about. In my thought process, the Big Bang Theory is kind of or universe take. But I get the feeling that very quickly Leonardo likes what he heard from Gabriel about the impetus of all action. And Leonardo says God as creator follows, like left foot after right. For me, it's difficult to think of the Big Bang Theory as along the same lines as creator. Creator is more active, taking after the fact of utilizing what comes about. And for Leonardo, he says, what a staggering accomplishment. He hadn't really thought about the creation that way before as he did when, at that moment when he realized that the creation, to create like that would be powerful enough to have rendered not just the birds and the bees, but the very sky in which they flew. And I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to remember what it was that I thought about that while you were talking, Samantha, about what you were talking about, right when we went into our break here. I'm sorry. There's so much going on here today. We have a couple moving out, and so you probably have seen shadows on the windows here, people coming in and out, and the front door is right next to my door. And my apologies to anyone who is watching this and trying to keep track of this with just all that's going on between us, but we are still trying to stick with the actions of God here.
That's okay. That's all right. We're both distracted. It's all good. I want to touch back on the Big Bang aspect of it, because I've listened to a lot of lectures, or not a lot. I've listened to a fair number of lectures that talk about physics and quantum theory and philosophy and a number of different things like that. And I've learned more about what they think the Big Bang actually was. And they're still trying to figure it out, which is the biggest thing, because basically what they're thinking is that because this Big Bang isn't two things popping together, banging together, it's actually all matter springing into existence from nothing. And they're trying to figure out how that could possibly happen. And they've discovered with quantum theory that stuff can actually just pop into existence, and they have no idea how that can happen. But that it's in some way, this is what they're looking, because they look back, through astronomy as far back as they can see, because of the whole thing of light speed and light bouncing off the things that we can see far away. Well, that we're only seeing it now because it takes so long for the light to get here for us to be able to see it. So they basically are looking back in time. It's hard to wrap your head around sometimes when they're talking about that. But basically, because of how long it takes the light to get to us, is that they basically are seeing back in time. And but anyway, so they're trying to figure out what that first initial thing was that happened way back all those millions of years ago to make the universe happen. And they're basically, from everything that I keep reading about and hearing about, it just sprung into existence from nothing, or at least it may not be nothing, because it may be something that we just don't know that is a thing. Who knows? Some part of matter or force or something that we just are not aware of because we don't have the instruments or the science to figure it out. I mean, who knows? And but I think that it kind of, in the Bible, he talks about, in the beginning, God created, right? But in the Bible, it shows it as it happened in a matter of 7 days. And but what they also talk about in science, as far as time is concerned, is that time is relative, depending on your point of view, depending on where you are, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very possible that 7 days in the Bible could be billions of years, and we just don't know how to express that, or it hasn't. You're all right. Come here. Come here. You're all right. You got it. All right. Come here. You okay? Did you fall down? All right. You want this? No? Okay. So anyway, that was kind of my thought on why it's, it could actually line up with science, could actually line up with religion. That religion is more of kind of like the story version of how everything came into existence, and then science is this is how it physically actually happened kind of thing, kind of like a metaphor, if you will, or a I mean, way back when, in older times, they would describe things that they had no idea the science behind. They didn't understand it, and so they had only stories and pictures and and things like that to kind of describe what actually happened. That's where legends come from and myths come from, as these stories pop up because we have no idea what the reality is of what is happening, but this is how it feels. And so we describe it in stories, right? So, it doesn't mean that it's less true. It just means that it's told in a different version. So we just have yet to figure out, what it really is scientifically, I guess. So anyway, that's my thoughts so far. Oh, we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I don't know if you want to share a final thought, and then we can just kind of wrap up on this subject, and then move on to the other ones next week, or the other actions.
I'm so glad you shared all about the Big Bang Theory, and I should make more of an effort to find out some of those kinds of things, and I'm encouraged to do that by this this comparison here today. One thing, though, that happened as you were talking, as I remembered what it was that, boy, I hope I can think of it again. The couple that are moving out, and I live in a care home. They're moving to a place that can help him with his memory and different things that they need to do now. They need to make those adjustments. But oh, I know what it was. You were talking about that people with faith, and it doesn't matter what faith, it doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what background it is. It doesn't matter, maybe. You talked about the monotheistic peoples, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I guess we're not talking about people who worship multiple gods, but I think we could be. But anyway, it doesn't matter where the faith could be applied. It simply matters that people have faith. And why, the reason that pops into my mind that matters so much now is because being 70 years old, which is still a strange thought to me. It's like, when the hell did that happen? But, one of the things that I've realized that people are really affected by, is isolation. Because I had really no idea how much I was affected by isolation. But I mean, I ended up really hospitalized for isolation, and I ended up being put in a care home, largely because of isolation. And, it's easy for me to just stick with my computer and basically bury myself in that every day and not really have anything to do with anyone. Whereas I have the ability to sit in front of the TV with everybody else, or I can lay on my bed all day, or I can do all these different things. But But I think that isolation matters here, where we think about whether or not we have faith. If you're going to live longer, you have to believe that there's a reason to live longer, a benefit to living longer, a value to living longer, whether or not you happen to have a love of your life, or whether or not you have, children who happen to be near you. I had a really, what I know was a sad experience to experience. Somehow I'm waiting to find out what the benefit was, but because I feel like there was a benefit. But my youngest son and his wife and 4 children made the trek from California to here to visit me, and we haven't seen each other for probably easily 8 years. As the group of 6, and I got to see them the night that they came in, just to have a Thai meal with them, and then to have a great dessert from, I don't know if I can even remember the place, Bahama Bucks, I think it's called. And then the next day I had the flu, and there was just no way that they could expose that family of 6 to the rounds that it would be if any one of them got the flu from me. I didn't get to see them with their visit here. So, isolation is something that people need to consider. They need to think about whether or not they've put themselves in a position where they're experiencing more isolation than they have in the past, and what they can do about that, so that is not something that's going to cost them their life in a probably relatively miserable way. So have faith, fellow listeners. If you've made it this far through our conversation this morning, keep on trekking.
Yeah, when I was talking about the monotheistic aspect, it was that was from the book. Where did I do with my book? I don't know. My book's gone. But anyway, it was when he was talking about, this is no, leave my plant alone. This is the typical from the monotheistic religions. This is typically what is considered an action of God, and but then when I was talking about all the different kind of religions or spiritual paths or beliefs or all of that, that was kind of like all encompassing from this other book. But I think that we were talking about how just having some kind of a belief can have the potential to keep you living longer and keep you happier, et cetera, et cetera. And, no matter what kind of a belief it is, if you believe in something. And, I was reading a book, I wish I remembered the name of it, a few years back, but it was kind of like a, don't put that in your mouth. Nope. Oh, okay. Never mind. You're good. I thought you had a leaf. Sorry, I thought I was eating a plant leaf. What was I saying about, sorry, totally lost my train of thought there. Lost it. What was I just saying, Karen?
I apologize. I got caught up in your saying that was a plant. I don't even know if that's what you said, but my mind went to, oh no, and all the stuff that could happen with a child ingesting a plant.
Yeah,
or even a part of a plant.
I looked down at him, and there's like, well, we've got all these leaves in the backyard, so when we come in through this door with the dog, tracks leaves in, and he was sitting down here, and he was playing with his little cup that has Cheerios in it, but then I also saw him with leaves in his hand, and then he went and put something in his mouth, and I thought it was the leaves, but luckily it was the Cheerios, but it was just dried, tree leaves or whatever. It would have been fine for a second. But that's funny. Well, Anyway, I have no idea what I was about to say, and I apologize for that for anyone who's watching. I guess we'll come back around to it, or it wasn't necessary to say right now. I don't know. But anyway, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up for today, Karen?
If anybody's still hanging on and listening to this, we just invite you to come back and try us again. We do have really interesting topics, and this particular group of abilities has 3 to it. We've only talked about 1, so we have 2 more to talk about. They're very important, and I think probably fascinating as well. And anybody who wants to join with us and be on the panel, we'd love to have you do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can come on here and lose your train of thought with us. Talk about whatever. Okay, guys. Well, it's been great. I've had a good time talking with you, Karen, and I think we've touched on a few things, even if we've been kind of all over the place with our focus. So anyway, for those of you who are interested in joining us and jumping on with these discussions, there's going to be some links below this video where you can get over to our Facebook group and connect with us. You can click on the link to get the book that we're reading, things like that. So jump into our Facebook group if you want to participate with us. There'll be links to get you into this chat every Saturday morning, or just about every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's where you can find us. So with that, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye!